So how do you know if you have a watch that is reputable and respectable in the watch enthusiast community? And how do you know that the particular mods that you do to this watch are subtle enough to even be more respectable and more reputable amongst the watch enthusiast community? Well, stay tuned for the big reveal, and I'm going to reveal why this particular watch is my favorite watch in my entire collection. Okay, so now it's time for the big reveal. We all know that this is an Invicta watch by the big lettering right there that says Invicta. But what a lot of you viewers don't understand is how special this watch is, and how I'm going to show you how this watch is going to be a very reputable and very respectable watch amongst the watch enthusiasts. Maybe even to go as far as saying impressing the watch snobs? Anyway, I hope. So anyway, now it's time for the big reveal. This is the Invicta. Should I open it? Close it. Open it, close it, open it, close it. Stop teasing them, Ryan. Oh, jeez. Okay. Here we go. This is the Invicta Pro Diver 8928 OB. So I've done some subtle modification to this watch. Some of the mods you're looking at right now, and you're not even recognizing that you're even seeing those mods. I'll explain more in detail as we get into the watch. The Invicta Pro Diver 8928 OB is an homage watch, or an homage watch, depending on which way you want to say it, but it's spelled the same way as the word homage. And as we know, homage means to pay homage or to pay respect to something or someone else. What this watch is paying homage to is the Rolex Submariner, which is the two-tone stainless steel 18-karat gold and is often referred to as bluesy. Straight out of the box, you can see the first subtle modification that I made. It's very subtle, but it's a modification nonetheless. Are you able to tell what it is? If you can, write it down in the comment section, and I'll reward you with a thumbs up or a comment back saying, yeah, you're awesome. Okay, so we're going to take us out of the box, and I'm going to show you the operations of this watch. Whoop, was that a clue to one of the modifications that I made? I guess you'll have to wait. We'll take us off this bill. Now, it comes with this soft yellow pillow. I didn't mod that, so don't forget. And then what we look at here is we see this watch, and it's got what they call a screw-down crown, just like the Rolex Submariner, which means that you unscrew this, it pops out like so. And it's got 3 different positions where you can pull this out, and then you're able to wind the watch. See if you can hear that. And you wind the mechanism by the crown, which obviously, if you didn't know yet already, that this is an automatic watch. What an automatic watch means is that there's no battery in this. It's just purely mechanical. It means it works on springs and levers and gears. You can tell an automatic watch or a mechanical watch by the movement of the second hand. If you can see this second hand right here, you see how smooth it is. Again, paying homage to the Rolex Submariner. We all know that a Rolex sweeps. It doesn't tick like a quartz watch. So that's the first clue that you can tell that this is an automatic watch. There is a clutch inside of the winding mechanism where you can't overwind it. Other mechanical watches that aren't automatic watches, you will get to a point where this part here will actually get tight, and it'll get to a point where you can't go anymore. And if you do go anymore, you're just going to snap the whole entire mechanism inside and break springs and gears and stuff, and you don't want to do that. It's bad. But this here, you can wind this until you're 85 years old, and it's never going to overwind because the clutch mechanism releases any type of spring tension that you do. So I can keep doing this. The second position, you pull it out one time, and that changes the date. You see here, the date changes. We need to change it back to 2 because today is November 2nd. But anyway, we see we change this date. We're going to change it back down to 2. one of the many cool features that a Rolex also does, and it's called a hacking feature. And what that does is you pull it out to the third stem location, and you notice that second hand stopped. That's called a hacking feature. And you're able to actually set the time this way. Now, I've heard that you never want to go reverse with setting time. You always want to go forward because you can always screw up the mechanism inside. And we see that the date changes there already, and it automatically goes through. All right, so we're on like noon right now on the 3rd. Keep going, keep going, keep going, until we get to the point of there's 11 o'clock, it's starting to turn, until we get to actual midnight. Boom, turns over. 5 till midnight, it turns over to the next day. All right, so that's what we got there. So let's go ahead and set this here till about 6:45 in the morning. We put this back in. We notice that the second hand starts ticking again. All right. And then if we want to screw the crown back in, it's threaded and it screws in back in. And what that does is that makes it water resistant because there is a gasket on this crown which makes it water resistant. There's also a gasket inside of this crystal. And also on the back there is a gasket on the inside of this screw down case back. You'll notice that this is a rotor on the back which gives the mechanism its actual power, because as that rotor spins it winds the watch even more. So you don't have to actually wind the watch by actually winding the crown. You can just wear the watch and it'll automatically build up tension because that rotor right there actually spins and gives you tension inside of your mechanism, which causes that to spin. Some people, what they'll do is they'll actually shake the watch and that'll cause that rotor to spin. Let's see if I can do that here. Can't show you too good here. You see that when you shake it, that the rotor spins and it gives you your mechanism. All of those features that you see are actually what makes this thing 200 meters water resistant, which is the crystal gasket, the crown gasket, and the screw down case back gasket. What's also unique about this watch is since it's a diver's watch, you got what they call a unidirectional bezel. And you're probably wondering what all these numbers mean on the outside. This is identical to the Rolex Submariner. And what you'll notice is that when I say unidirectional, it means it goes counterclockwise. Just like so. So I'm going to set it here to this minute hand. And what that does is that is a timer that you have. Okay, now this is, again, like I said, a diver's watch, and it's going to time your dive on how much air you have in your tank. Some tanks, you can go 15 minutes, which, there's 10 and then 15. Some got 20, some got 30, some got a full hour that you can go. So what you want to do is you want to set this as soon as you go underwater to where your minute hand's at. So this cannot go back clockwise. It actually locks this way. It can only go this way. So if you accidentally were to bump it, then you'd have less time underwater, but you'd be a lot more safer because you're not going to drown, obviously. And your reserve tank usually has about 15 minutes worth of air in there. So that's why this has 15 minutes on there. So you can surface, you can start to ascend more and more and more and more to, avoid nitrogen in your blood, which is called the bends, because you don't want the bends. You get really sick with that. There's another subtle modification. I don't know if you can tell. If you can tell in the comment section, write it down, and I'll, again, like I said, I'll give you a thumbs up and a big comment like, yeah, you did it. And again, so anyway, what I use this mostly for is when I'm parking in a place with a parking meter. I'll just take this and just right there when I put my quarters in. That's when I put my quarters in. If I have, 15 minutes, if I have half an hour, 45 minutes, or an hour, then I'll know when it's time to come back to put more quarters back in the meter if I'm going to be there longer. So, just like the Rolex Submariner, this bezel is a 120 click bezel. Some of your cheaper models will actually have a 60 click bezel. And the way you can tell 120 click bezel versus 60 click bezel is there are 60 minutes in an hour. Okay? So you would have 5 clicks from here to here. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 there. But if we count here, we can actually tell this is 120 click bezel because it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, so that's double of what there. So double of 60 is 120. That's 120 click bezel. Okay, so now it's time to reveal the subtle modifications that I made to the watch. Like I said, when I first revealed this, you're actually looking at the first subtle modification. And if you guessed it, congratulations. If not, I'm going to tell you right now. It's this bezel insert. That's the first subtle modification. Now, you're probably wondering, well, I've seen a bunch of Invicta Pro Divers and they don't look any different than yours. Well, it's not necessarily true because mine is a darker blue and I use that to actually match the dial. This is the original bezel that came with it. And as you see, it's not as dark of a blue on this bezel as compared to this bezel. It doesn't really match the dial as much as this bezel does. It's a snap-in bezel, so it snaps in. You don't need any glue. You don't need any type of things to hold it in. Where this bezel here, you actually have to have a little amount of 3M double adhesive tape to stick it in. This bezel is actually thicker than this one here. I'm not going to take the bezel out to show you, but you see how thin that is. That's an aluminum bezel. This is also an aluminum bezel, but it's a lot thicker, which is able to make it snap into place instead of having to glue it. Okay, now we're going to go to the second subtle modification, and that is the actual bezel mechanism. You notice here that I'm turning it, and it's not going to go backwards. But I can go this way, and it lines up perfectly fine. But no matter how much I try, I can't get that to go backwards. On your standard, typical out-of-the-box Pro Diver, this would have some play in the actual bezel, like so. This one here doesn't, because what I did is I took this, this bezel out when I changed the actual insert, and I changed the spring on the inside. So that's the second subtle modification, to where you're not able to have any play in that at all whatsoever, because I wanted to make it as replicated to the Rolex Submariner as I possibly could. All right, now let's go on to the third modification, and that is the actual end links. Okay, if you're able to see here, let me take this apart. These are solid end links, where in your out-of-the-box factory Invicta Pro Diver, you have what they call hollow end links, and those are these here. You see that these are hollow end links, and this is more on your cheaper model watch. Not to say the Invicta Pro Diver isn't cheap or anything, I mean, because I really like it a lot, but this is what you get on your more cheaper end watches, including the Invicta Pro Diver, even though I don't consider the Pro Diver to be a very cheap watch at all. But that's what I did here. Let me move this that way. Is I put solid end links in. On to the third modification, which is another subtle modification, is the actual bracelet. This is a bracelet and the clasp that goes along with it, which is an unbranded Rolex Submariner bracelet and clasp. Now, on the standard, where is it at here? On the standard Invicta bracelet, you see that it's got that gold tone in the middle, and it's got this clasp, and it has the actual stamped clasp. It has the Invicta logo on there, and it's got the spring bars for the mechanism to adjust it and such as so. And it also has the push pins where you push these out to adjust the lengths on the actual size of, of the bracelet that you want. And you'll notice here that on this side, it's gold tone on this side, but it's just stainless steel here on this side. Gold tone on this side, stainless steel on this side. On this one here, it's also gold tone, but it's solid gold tone because it's gold tone on this side and on the inside of the watch, including the actual end links, on solid end links as well. And the one thing you also see here on the links, taking the links apart, is they're screw links. They're not push pins. You can take these apart just by unscrewing these. Here on this side, and then on this side here, you got the screw links. Now, again, like I said, I got very feminine wrists, but I got Popeye arms. I don't know why God decided to give me that package, but I don't know anyway. I've also opted up for the Rolex non-branded clasp. You see, this is the same exact clasp that you get on the Rolex Submariner, except that there's no Rolex brand here on this part of the clasp. And it works exactly like the Rolex Submariner. You see that we take this apart, just like so, and it has what they call the glide lock assembly, which means that you could take this and actually adjust the glide lock to adjust it without even having to use the push pins. You see that those little ridges in there, that is where you actually adjust it into 0.5 millimeter sections by section. So if I wanted to adjust this in the tightest setting here that I have, take it off, you click it, it's clicked into place. Or if you wanted to, to make it bigger or looser, you just go all the way out to here, and you adjust it to that side there, to that big link. Also on the Rolex Submariner clasp, this is a spring-operated mechanism, as you can see, just like so. So when you put this into the clasp, you'll see that it actually closes with a spring, and when you take it off, it also comes apart with a spring mechanism. It's also solid steel, unbranded. There's no Rolex anything in there. There's no Rolex branding whatsoever. Solid steel, just like the Rolex. So everything's solid steel. And it is the actual, well, it's not the actual, but it's very, very replicated to the Rolex Submariner. And of course, another sort of modification that you'll also notice is fingerprints. No, those aren't modifications. But you know what's unique about this bracelet, and I've actually saw a Rolex in person, in hand, is that this bracelet and clasp, just like the authentic Rolex Submariner, is a fingerprint and micro scratch magnet. As you can see fingerprints, micro scratches galore in there. You know, there's nothing you can do with that except take it to a jeweler and have it polished. But with the actual fingerprints, you can actually just take those out with a microfiber cloth. And the fingerprints are gone. The micro scratches are still there. I mean, I've had this for a while, so. But if you were to take car wax on this, you're able to actually alleviate a lot of fingerprints in the actual clasp. Okay, so let's do a wrist shot. Let's see what this thing looks like on the wrist. I'll show you how we actually adjust it to the wrist. I have very feminine wrists. Like so. Oh, I got it set. Actually, this is on the, I have the glide lock set all the way to the last setting there. So you see that this is very loose. So what we're going to do is we're going to adjust that to where I have it set. One video I heard said that when you go to your authorized Rolex dealer, that they want to make sure that when they set your Rolex, they want to make sure that it's set all the way to the tightest fitting and it fits you the way that it's meant to be fit. That way, whenever you want to take it off, it will be, or when you That way, whenever you want to actually have the watch over top of a dive suit, or you want to, your wrist expands because of the heat, you can take the watch off the clasp, and you can adjust it to whatever setting that you want. So if you wanted to take the glide lock off like so, and just say if you want to go here, you can. Or if you want to go all the way out, you can. Just like so. And it clicks into place just like a Rolex. Here, listen. You hear that? And when it unclicks also like a Rolex. So when you click it back into place like so, it clicks. 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 And this is a wrist shot of my Invicta Pro Diver 8928 OB. So let's go over why this watch is considered to be a special watch, and why I feel, in my opinion, it's going to be reputable and respectable amongst watch enthusiasts, even to go as far as the watch snobs. I don't know. The reason why I got this watch is because of the fact that I wanted to get a watch that is going to remind me that one day I'm going to get a true, authentic Rolex Submariner. Because the actual slogan of Rolex is, the struggle is over, you've made it. So when you finally reach your achievement success on the first level of where you envisioned yourself to be, you buy yourself a Rolex, and that's the tradition. You get yourself a Rolex. And the struggle is over, you made it. So I wanted to authenticate this to remind me as much as possible that this is as close to the Rolex as I'm going to get right now, and it's a remindatory of what I'm working for so hard in my career, in both acting, producing, and writing, to get to the point where I can say the struggle is over, I made it. Until then, I look at this and it reminds me that, I'm working, I'm busting my ass, and I'm doing what I can to get there. So anyway, that is the Rolex homage, the Invicta Pro Diver 8928 OB. One thing I wanted to stress out here is that people are always talking about OB saying original bezel. I've actually done some research, and actually OB stands for oyster bezel, because this is considered to be an oyster bracelet. I understand why Invicta would say OB, which would mean oyster bezel, because this is the oyster bracelet. But if you look at their other models, they actually have other Invicta Pro Divers without the OB, and it has what they actually call an oyster bezel on there. So it doesn't make any sense at all whatsoever. If they really wanted to do that, they would say that this is the CB, which is the coin bezel, because that's coin edged, not actual oyster edged bezel. But they call it the OB because it's the oyster bezel. So this has been my unboxing, sort of, because I've been wearing the watch for a while. My review, my subtle modifications, and the reason why I feel that this watch is going to be considered to be respectable and reputable amongst watch enthusiasts and hopefully the watch snobs. And I'd also like to add too that if it's not respectable amongst the watch snobs, those are a rare breed of people. They're like trolls on the internet. They're so insecure and so happy with themselves, they want to make other people miserable, and they're like, oh, you don't have a true watch. I don't like that. It's not very authentic. I don't like it. You know what? You don't need those people in your life anyway. If you get a watch, like in my situation, that it's going to remind me of what I'm working for, and the reason why I look at this and remind me and try to make it as authentic as possible to the real thing, then screw those watch snobs. Screw anybody else who puts you down. You don't need that. Just be yourself and get something that makes you happy. Okay, guys, thank you very much for watching my video, and I will see you on the flip side. Take care.